Finishing a sketchbook can be rather difficult. It's one of those things that you look forward to as you're working through the book, but when you get to the final pages, what do you do with those last few entries? In today's video, we're going to take a look at just some strategies, but also just some thoughts as I come close to finishing a sketchbook that I've been working on for the last year. I've accidentally purchased sketchbooks for a while now that are 100 pages, and I find that it just takes a long time to get through them. And I struggle to be consistent through the entirety of a sketchbook. So I'm starting to work on smaller ones, and this one has been dragging on for a while. So come along with me and we'll take a look at kind of how I finish out those last couple pages of it. I've had this sketchbook for a long time. I started it in October of 2022. And as I am prone to do, and maybe you identify, I started with a certain idea as to what the sketchbook was going to be. Lots of studies. Since then, I've become more free, more liberal with what I'm willing to put in here. And so this series of robots and dragons and all of these wonderful things has kind of evolved as I've gone through this sketchbook. And at present, I've got a couple more robots that I need to finish, and maybe a dozen or so pages left in this sketchbook. So I'm going to start working through the things that I have to finish, and then I'm going to fill in the empty spaces between those with things that I want to work on. And maybe that almost sounds silly. Like, of course the things that you want to work on are where you should focus your time in a sketchbook, but you probably, like me, have found yourself with expectations that you didn't anticipate having. And so when it comes to finishing a sketchbook, there's a couple strategies you can follow that I think are really beneficial. Lean into the stuff that's fun. Lean into the stuff that you have been doing. Or allow those last couple pages just to be experimentation. These robots have been a lot of fun, and they've alleviated a lot of my stress when it comes to thinking about and planning what I'm going to do for this particular sketchbook session. I don't know about you, but especially near the end of a sketchbook, I have this extra pressure on myself, especially a sketchbook like this that has so many good drawings in it. When I get to the end, I'm stuck in this weird state of, oh goodness, like I have to keep up the trend. I have to do things that are of the same caliber as everything else that I've put together. And that's simply not true. So I've tried to do some sketches here at the end that are both fun and in line with everything else that the sketchbook has been. And some of them are then also just goofy things that are going to put me in a better state of mind, that are going to make this last couple moments, these last couple hours with this sketchbook as pleasant as they possibly can be. And some of the drawings really are goofy. This Toad Princess was a prompt on the Discord server and just a fun, relaxing, goofy thing to put together. And the final result is cute and funny and goofy. And drawings like this help alleviate the pressure for me near the end of a sketchbook. So if you find yourself kind of in a similar situation where you're trying to finish off a sketchbook, perhaps leaning into the things that are enjoyable is going to be one of the best things that you can do. This drawing is a perfect example that encapsulates this idea of what do you do at the end of a sketchbook. This is the last drawing in my robot series. The goal was to do 100 robots, and this is number 100. If you're missing out on some of the others, they'll show up in sketchbook sessions, so don't worry. But for this drawing, of course, I had the feeling that it needed to be something great, something dynamic, because it's the last one. It's the final piece to this giant puzzle. And you know what that thought did to me? It gave me a whole lot of stress and anxiety and put a whole bunch of additional pressure that was basically the opposite of what this series was as a goal for me as a human being. And so instead I decided to go with the strange feeling of what do I do now? And so I came up with this robot with the idea of him questioning like who he is or what his goal is, what his purpose is. Because this is what I feel as an artist, finishing the sketchbook and also finishing this series. Sometimes it's good to lean into those kinds of things, those thought processes, and allow your art to explore pieces of who you are as a human and what you're feeling in that moment. Sometimes it can feel a little sad when you come to the end of a sketchbook, like the end of a video game or a book. you're leaving behind something, you're completing something, and there is a sense of finality to that. For some of us, that is a lovely, ecstatic feeling, and for some of us, it's really hard. So if you feel a little bit of sorrow at the end of your sketchbook, allow yourself to feel those feelings. Maybe make your art reflect on that, or maybe write yourself a nice note at the end of your sketchbook. Something to lead you with a happy mood into the next one, because there should be a next one. And that might be a good thing to focus on for just a moment as well. Have your next sketchbook ready to go. Because if you finish your sketchbook and you feel that sorrow, and then you don't have something else to dive into, or you go to the store to pick out your new sketchbook now, you might find that that decision is carrying a lot more pressure than it needs to be. Because you're trying to fill in a gap that this sketchbook has had in your psychology. And that sketchbook is not just a book by the time you finish it. It is a conglomerate of your drawings and your purpose and your skill progression and your emotions and your dreams. And so replacing it with just a book is going to be really hard. So maybe try to have that next sketchbook ready to go on a shelf somewhere, easily accessible, a new friend for a new journey. And at the end, though this might seem a little funny, I often like to write a note to myself. These last 2 pages were things that I focused on a long time ago, and I actually thought I was recording this when I was writing this initially, but it doesn't really matter. Thank you, dear friend, for the time and the safety and the joy. They were needed. These last couple months have been difficult, and the joy that I've pulled from my drawings and my drawing community have been immeasurable. So I hope that as you come to finish up your sketchbook, some of these thoughts might be beneficial to you. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And I wish you the best when it comes to finishing up your beloved sketchbook and heading into the next one, the next stage of your inevitable, infinite artistic journey. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.